Hi. We're here to do a quick, a quick and probably a simple tutorial on creating a splash screen for your application using JavaFX and FXML markup language. Um, so what you're seeing right here is like what my like for this app that we're demonstrating. I'm showing like what my splash screen is going to look like, the title, um, and what have you. So the background is actually sourced from a HTTP site um, that gives a random image, and then here the logo is a photo of Bill Murray, because why not Bill Murray? Um, and I have the bill information here, and then here is what you'll keep an eye on: loading images from catalog. So as this splash screen is being showed, you will actually see a status update on this string right here. It will update depending on like what your application is doing in the background as it's initializing. So that's the key thing here. You can have the splash screen as have like a delay of like 3 or 5 seconds, and then introduce your main app. But what I'm about to show you here is that using the splash screen, you can actually leverage it to initialize whatever your app needs in the background, whether reading from the database to populate your initial screen or whatever. You can leverage this technique to do just that. Now, the source code for all of these is found in the link in the description below. But here I will give you a taste of like how it looks like when it's running, and give you a quick rundown of where the magic happens. All right, so just do a quick thing, run it. So it's running now. As you can see there, loading 172 and 174, right? And then now it's launched. Now, so what's happening there? So let's go to the text version of it. So that loading X from catalog is wired to the field, the controller field of name status text, right? So that status text is in the controller, and it's bound to that JavaFX control on the FXML screen. So keep note of that status text. Now let's go to the splash controller. So here, the status text, the one that we right, so that's the same status text. So, and well, before that, we should go to the launch, the start. So this is the start method for any JavaFX application. You override the start method, and then initialize whatever you need to initialize, right? But in our case, the initialization first is passed on to the splash controller, which renders the splash screen driven by splash FXML, which is the XML that we were looking at earlier. This is the same XML. So it is you get that resource, create the controller, and then render it using this one, stage show. So nothing Nothing different there. The only thing I'll probably I'll mention is that I'm using Guava Google Juice to do dependency injection. That's probably topic for another day. But basically, what I'm just doing here is that I'm using Google Juice to instantiate my controller, which is the Splash controller right here. Now in the Splash controller, the status text is there. And the initialize method is where the bootstrapping of the splash screen happens. Initialize is called when those widgets, the controls are already initialized. So they are realized at this point. They already exist. They're no longer null. So that in this case, the control of interest is status text. The label already exists. And from here, I'm going to call a thread, create a thread using completable feature run async, and then call my data layer, my data abstraction layer to load the actual images. So when I call load images, one of the things that you'll pay attention to is that the load images has a callback as one of the parameters. In this case, I'm using function 3. Think of it as kind of like consumer or by consumer in the Java util package. I needed something that requires 3 parameters, and unfortunately the default Java library doesn't have it, so I needed to use a different library from a library called VAVR. So I'll link to that library right there. So here on the load function, that callback is here, and then I would call. So essentially, when you do a dot apply, that means, all right, whenever I'm doing on this loop, call this function for every iteration. That's the simplest way I could do it. You'll need to look at the code on what it actually does. So when it calls apply, we go back to the controller, and in our case, it updates the status text. So saying load 1 out of whatever images. So you'll see that the splash screen is actually those loading X of X images is not fake. It's an actual status of what's going on behind the scenes. And there's really not much to it. So I mean the magic and the convenience of Java Lambda allows you to inline function calls without a lot of boilerplate code. And this is what I did here. So this is just a Java Lambda. And the last thing I probably want to point out is that I am using this platform run later. So platform run later is a convenience function from JavaFx, which is you pass in a Lambda and then do whatever UI update that you need to do. You need to do this because JavaFX only allows update on its own thread. Especially if your data layer is doing multiple threads, you need to use run later decorator so that when you update anything that's in the UI. And then lastly, once you did all of that, once this is done, by using platform run later, you load your actual main screen. And then it's no different here. You do a stage, whatever, and then you hide your splash screen. Essentially, you can hide it, and then you can destroy it at this point since you have no use for it. But that's the entire rundown of how everything works. And again, the gist is in the description below. If you need any, like, if you have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments, and then I'll probably follow this up with another video on how we could use Google Juice to do dependency injection with JavaFX.